So, hello students, today we will study about classification of neurons on the basis of their structure. Second one is on the basis of their function, and third one is on the basis of their medullary sheath. So, neurons are classified on the basis of their structure, function and medullary sheath. Number one, on the basis of structure, neurons are of three types. Number one is unipolar neuron, number two is bipolar neuron, number three is multipolar neuron. On the basis of function, neurons are of two types, sensory neuron and motor neuron. And on the basis of medullary sheath, neurons are of two types. Number one is medullated and number two is non-medullated. So first, on the basis of structure, neurons are of three types. Number one is a unipolar neuron, number two is a bipolar neuron, and number three is multipolar neuron. So on the basis of structure, depending on the number and arrangement of cytoplasmic processes, if you see the structure of typical structure of neuron, you will see in such a way. Understood? So these are one extension, and these are called as what? Dendrites. These are called as dendrites. This is called as a cyton. So this is a cyton, and this second is called as what? This is called as or this part is called as what? It is called as axon. So cytoplasmic processes are divided, or there are two types. Number one is dendrites and number two is axons, and this is the middle cell body, or you can say cyton. So depending on the number and arrangement of cytoplasmic extension, the neurons are classified as follows. Number one is unipolar neuron. You can also name it as a monopolar neuron. So this is also called as monopolar neuron, or you can say unipolar neuron. If you see the structure of this unipolar neuron, you will come to know that it has a single processes. So this is a cyton, and here only one process is there. So this is only one process you will see, which is arising from this cyton, only one process is arising. Both axon and dendrites arise from cyton. So both axons, so these are the axons, and these are called as dendrites. So these are dendrites. So this is also dendrites, which arises from a single cyton. That's why such type of neurons are called as unipolar neuron. So what happens? These unipolar type of neuron, they conduct impulse to central nervous system. So impulse is conducted to central nervous system. So they conduct impulse to central nervous system. So this you have to keep it in mind about unipolar neuron. Here if we see, unipolar neuron has a single processes, only single processes is present. So this is the single process. It is also called as monopolar neuron. This we have studied. Number two is bipolar neuron. So here you can see the figure of bipolar neuron. So this is a cyton, this is axon, this is also an axon. Understood? These are dendrites, these are also called as dendrites. So it has how many processes? Two processes. So this is one process and this is second process. That's why the name is given bipolar neuron. So a single dendrites and an axon are given off from opposite pole of the cytons. So these are the opposite to each other. So single poles are given. They bring about transmission of special sense like. So what these bipolar neuron do, they bring sense of what? First is smell. So they bring sense of smell. Another is taste, so which is present in tongue region. Then hearing. So this is the main function of this bipolar neuron. Sight, we look with the help of our eyes. So these are what they brings about transmission of special senses. And which senses they bring? So number one is smell, taste, then hearing, sight. So this is all about bipolar neuron. If you see here, bipolar neurons have two processes originated from opposite poles of the cyton. So this is was about first neuron. This is bipolar neuron. Number 3 is called as multipolar neuron. So this is the third multipolar neuron. If you last time we have studied typical structure of neuron, same figure here you can observe. So cyton, how is this cyton? If you see this is cyton, cyton is star shaped. How is the shape of this cyton? It is a star shaped cyton you will observe, and it give out more than two processes. So number of processes arise from this multipolar neuron. So this is processes, this is another processes. So they are called as dendrites, but number of processes which arises from this cyton, and this one is axon. So number of processes arise from this multipolar neuron. This you have to keep in mind. So there is only one axon. So processes are many, but the axon is, so this is axon, and it is only single new axon is present. This also you have to keep it in mind. So this was all about classification of neuron on the basis of their structure. So this we have studied on the basis of their structure. Now we are going to study classification of this neuron on the basis of their function. So they are of two types. On the basis of functions, neurons are of two types that we have seen. So number one is called as a sensory neuron. So this is number one, that is sensory neuron. So what happens, if you see, this is the skin of human being, and inside our skin there are number of sensory neurons which are present. So if there is a pricking of needle within our finger, so what happens, these sensory nerves conduct impulse through this dorsal horn, and it goes to the spinal cord. So inside the spinal cord is the part of central nervous system. So here what happens, here neuron is present. So neuron will send the message to the brain will analyze, and again the message will be sent to this spinal cord, and here this intermediate neuron will give message with the help of this motor neuron, and this is sensory neuron. And then we remove our hand. So this happens within a fraction of second, and such type of neuron are called as sensory neurons. So sensory neurons are responsible to external stimulus. So external stimulus here is the pricking of needle. So this is the pricking of needle to our skin, and carry impulse towards the central nervous system. So impulse is carried to the central nervous system. So spinal cord is the part of central nervous system. So here what happens, the zonal part of sensory neuron terminates in the intermediate neuron. So here this is called as intermediate neuron. So this is intermediate neuron is present here. So intermediate neuron is present here. So this will send the message to the central nervous system, that is brain, and brain will analyze, and again brain will send the message to this mediated neuron, and through the motor neuron what will happen, the afferent nerve which is present, and in such a way our hand we will remove. Neurons which are seen in brain and spinal cord, they are stimulated by the impulse that are received from the sensory neuron. So this is all about sensory neurons. So this is first type on the basis of their function. So it carries impulse from sense organ to central nervous system. So there are number of sense organ which are present in our body. Understood? Skin is also a sensory organ, central nervous system, hence it is called as sensory neuron. So these neurons, sensory neurons, what happens, they carry impulse from sensory organ to central nervous system. So they are called as sensory neuron. This you have to keep it in mind. So next one is motor neuron. So if you see the motor neuron, here what happens, the impulse from central nervous system. So this impulse from the central nervous system will be carried from central nervous system to effector organ. Effector organs means what? Our hand, understood, or finger. So it will be carried, hence they are called as motor neuron. They are found in this ventral root. See, if you see the structure of the spinal cord, this is a ventral root. Here the name is given, this is ventral root, this is dorsal root, understood. So this is dorsal root, this is ventral root of spinal cord. So in such a way, motor neurons carry impulse from the central neuron system towards the effector organ, which brings about the response. So this was all about, on the basis of the function, neurons are classified into two types, that is sensory neuron and motor neuron. Here neurons on the basis of medullary sheath, they are of two types. Number one is it is called as myelinated nerve fiber, and second one is called as non-myelinated nerve fibers. So if you see the difference between these two, you should know the structure of axon, a typical structure of neuron. If you see, so we have seen that the myelin sheath is present on the external region of this axon. So let us try to understand medullated sheath and non-medullated sheath of neuron. So in this medullated nerve fiber or myelinated nerve fiber, here there are special types of cell, and these cells are called as what? These cells are called as Schwann cells. So what happens? These Schwann cells secrete a insulating fatty layer, and which forms myelin sheath. So these cells which are present inside here, they are called as Schwann cells. They secrete an insulating fat layer and they will form this myelin sheath. So here you can see this myelinated sheath is formed by this Schwann cells which secretes fatty acid layer. So this is the first point. Next is, it is interrupted at regular intervals called as nodes of Ranvier. So in medullated sheath or in a myelinated nerve fiber, you will see that such types of nodes of Ranvier are present. So these are the nodes of Ranvier. So here this node is present. So this is node of Ranvier. So this is road of Ranvier. Here another node is present, here a node is present, understood. So these are the nodes of Ranvier which are present in these myelinated nerve fiber or medullated nerve fiber. Third point, if you see, that is a thin delicate membrane called as neurolemma surrounds the axon. So this is the axon, a typical axon, and this external region is called as a neurolemma. So this is called as what? External layer is called as neurolemma. So this is neurolemma. Understood? So external layer of axon is called as a neurolemma. So cranial nerves of vertebrates are of this type. Myelinated or medullated nerve fibers are useful in conducting impulse at a faster rate. So as compared to non-myelinated nerve fiber, these medullated nerve fiber conduct impulse faster than this non-medullated nerve fiber. Next point, as the impulse jump from one nodes of Ranvier to another, it is called as saltatory type of conduction is brought when the nerve impulse which jumps from these nodes of Ranvier to the another node of Ranvier. Understood? So this is called as what? Saltatory conduction. This you have to keep in mind. So this was about medullated nerve fiber or myelinated nerve fiber. Now number 2 is non-myelinated or non-medullated nerve fiber. So here you can see this B number figure. So you will just understand the difference between this medullated nerve fiber and non-medullated nerve fiber. Here the axon of this nerve fiber lacks the myelin sheath. So here there is absence of myelin sheath. Absence of myelin. So myelin sheath is absent. So there is no myelin sheath as it is present in this figure number A, that is medullated nerve fiber. Second point is, as Schwann cells present around their nerve fiber does not secrete the sheath. In this non-medullated nerve fiber, Schwann cells are present, but they do not secrete. They do not secrete this fatty layer. They do not secrete this fatty layer. That's why this myelin sheath is not formed. They do not secrete this fatty layer. This you have to keep it in mind. So insulating fatty layer is not secreted by these Schwann cells which are present in non-medullated nerve fiber. That's why they do not contain myelin sheath. They are present in the autonomous nerve. So such type of these non-myelinated nerve fibers, they are present in autonomous nerve. Where they are present? They are present in autonomous nerves of vertebrates and invertebrates nervous system. So where is the location of this non-myelinated nerve fiber? In autonomous nerve of vertebrates and invertebrates nervous system. Next point, these nerve fibers also helps in the conduction of impulse. So this non-medullated nerve fiber, they helps to conduct the nerve impulse, but at much lower rate as compared to these myelinated or medullated nerve fiber. They are faster. Understood? They perform faster. Understood? But here they they their nerve impulse travels in slower rate as compared to myelinated nerve fiber. So these we have seen, we have studied about classification of neuron on the basis of their structure, on the basis of their function, and on the basis of their medullated sheath. So in next lecture we will see next point. Until then, thank you very much.